we're reading, of course, a lot of what? Words, words, words. The Leaves of Grass is a long collection of poems. Song of Myself, unbelievably long. And yet he says, I am silent. And then what does he do? Go and bathe and admire myself. In other words, I have no interest in debating with the talkers, with the intellectuals, with the intelligentsia, with the elites. I have no interest in debating with them this thing that we have to, in fact, talk about, namely, of course, the procreant urge, urge. I got no interest. Then he comes back with the word welcome. In other words, I think I'm not alone here. Welcome is every organ and attribute of me. We're back, of course, to the celebration of everything. I told you, in Leaves of Grass, almost every body part's going to get celebrated. Don't be shocked by it, okay? Every organ and attribute of me and of any man, that is to say, what I assume, you shall assume, for every atom belonging to me as well belongs to you. This idea that we're all in this together, any man, and then he'll give his list of hearty and clean. Now, we're going to see more of this in Song of the Open Road, passage 10, where he's going to give a little list of the kind of people who get to join him and the kind of people who don't get to join him. You got to be healthy, you got to be clean. For Whitman, there seemed to be some recognition of the importance of positive health, proper taking care of oneself. He was part of the temperance movement. There's a whole lot of this happening in the American milieu at the time. That is to say, we got to take care of it. We got to be better than the rest of the world, even physiologically. We just got to look better. We got to be healthier, more active, that kind of thing. So I said that in a poem coming, it's going to be the masculine urge. This idea that you got to be strong, you got to be committed. So we're going to see some of this. Then he'll finish this section by saying, not an inch or a particle of an inch is vile. In other words, I'm going to admire everything about myself because there is nothing vile, which will take us back to starting from Paumanok, passage 7. You'll remember that he says, there is no evil, no vileness, and none shall be less familiar than the rest. In other words, he's setting us up here early on in Song of Myself to say, don't be shocked when I start messing around with poetic lines that are going to celebrate all kinds of stuff that, it's going to be a little bit questionable for my culture and society, but I'm going to celebrate it anyway. It's all part of what makes us so amazing. And then he'll kind of finish with almost like a chorus here that will be an amazing extended simile. Watch this. It's quite remarkable, and he's playing games with Homer, obviously. He says, I am satisfied. We're going to hear this all the way through. We're going to get this dash, which reminds us of Emily Dickinson. I'm satisfied, and then the dash, I see, dance, laugh, sing. There it is. In other words, you want to know what I do in my life? He says, I do 4 things. I'm a looker. I see. I love to dance. I love to laugh, and I love to sing. These are the things that make my life meaningful. And then this amazing word picture. So read it with me. I mean, it's going to blow you away the way he plays this game. As the hugging and loving bedfellow sleeps at my side through the night and withdraws at the peep of the day with stealthy tread, leaving me baskets covered with white towels, swelling the house with their plenty, shall I postpone my acceptation and realization and scream at my eyes that they turn from gazing after and down the road, and forthwith cipher and show me to assent exactly the value of 1 and exactly the value of 2, and which is ahead? Question mark. Now, some readers will go, question mark? Was that a question that he just asked? And if it was, what kind of a question was it? Well, I've already pointed out to you from our study of inscriptions and starting from Paumanok, the way Whitman loves his rhetorical questions that are for him self-evidently obvious. Now let's go back to the beginning of the simile, because again, we go back to my comments in the Iliad and the Odyssey, and the Aeneid as well, of those extended or epic similes, and the way those similes get played out. Notice they'll often start with an as, and they'll go to a word like shall or so. He's playing the exact same game here. By the way, in 1855, the wording of this line was actually a little bit different. As God comes a loving bedfellow, and sleeps at my side all night, and close on the peep of the day, is the way that he wrote it in 1855. And then he changes it by the deathbed edition to simply, as the hugging, loving bedfellow sleeps at my side through the night. Now, this, of course, immediately would make readers of Whitman's own day go to that famous scene in the opening of Moby Dick, Melville's Moby Dick, where you've got two guys in bed together who are sleeping, and one discovers the other as the foreigner, and they both see each other as the foreigner. Of course, they go on to become, very close friends. This idea of bedfellow doesn't have to be sexual, by the way, okay? It can just simply mean somebody who you share the evening with. Doesn't have to mean sexual, but it certainly can. And Whitman doesn't shy away from that kind of language. But it's about then the longing that one has after the one that's been in your bed leaves, and the only thing left behind are going to be baskets full of gifts, okay, of some kind or another. That then you've got to figure out what the value of those gifts are. Let's look at it again. As the hugging and loving, by the way, hugging, arms wrapped around, we're going to see this imagery a lot, that's why I'm pointing it out, sleeps at my side through the night, and withdraws at the peep of the day, the beginning of the morning. Makes us think, of course, about Thoreau's comment about wakening to the morning and all of that, as we talked about already. With stealthy tread, this idea of the tread or the walking, we're going to come back to time and again, Song of the Open Road. Leaving me, in other words, ideas come, and they're with me for a while, he says, and then they're gone. Now, of course, we're going to see this all the way through Leaves of Grass. Notice how he uses the word leaving through Leaves of Grass. And, of course, leaving and leaves are going to be, obviously, very closely aligned. Leaving me, baskets covered with white towels swilling the house with their plenty. In other words, there's something in the baskets. What is it? Something grown. Leaves of Grass comes to mind, but something grown, something beautiful, something that smells, something aromatic, something that could be used even for making a profit, right? All of that sets us up for the word shall, right? In other words, it's as if someone who I really care for has come, stayed in my bed, left, and left me some gifts. So, or shall, but the shall is phrased in the form of an interesting question. Shall I postpone my exception and realization and scream at my eyes that they turn from gazing after and down the road? In other words, I find myself looking out the window wanting to know, when will it come back? When will it come back? Shall I just stand here? Or forthwith cipher and show me to assent? In other words, use at least what was left behind, exactly the value of one and exactly the value of two, and which is ahead. In other words, the great power, he says, of these ideas that I'm playing with is that they come and they go. And I'm not going to try to somehow separate or give value to one or to the other. In other words, to the talkers, he says, your project is not my project. My project is a different, entirely different project, and I'm going to enjoy the project, what? The way I would enjoy not just someone in my bed with me as a bedfellow, but as well the possible return of that bedfellow later. Now, this is some compelling language for 1855, which is again why some people call this pornographic or obscene and got rid of it. Others said, what is he actually talking about at all? I mean, I don't even understand what he's talking about. He will, of course, come back to it in passage 4, when he will then play more of the same game of the talkers and the trippers. In other words, people who don't really understand what they're talking about, they pretend like they do. But he says about himself, I understand something, and that something is, I can't explain it. It's translinguistic, and yet, it's an urge, it's an urge, it's an urge. Notice he'll repeat that 4 times in this poem. Well, let's finish quickly at 2a. Well, what are we going to say for possible messages here? Obviously, one of those is that the most important thing in life, well, we might say the most important things in life are simple, right? Singing, dancing, laughing, singing, right? Or they're translinguistic. They're beyond that. Watch a child swinging at the park. The child doesn't have to say, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. Now, the parent swinging the child will often say to himself or herself, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. Because The parent recognizes what's going on. The child, simple experience in the moment, in the present moment. Of course, another major message here is that it seems like he's arguing that with every end there's a beginning, with every beginning there's an end, and it's ongoing, right? Go back to that word picture at the end where someone who you care for is with you in bed, and then all of a sudden you awaken and that someone is gone at the peep of day, leaving behind gifts for you that you then get to decide how you're going to use those gifts. At 2b, that final simile is an amazing one, and we're going to see more of this as we play the game along. Some of Whitman's word pictures, we'll come back to this Bedfellow, some of this word picture stuff is really compelling in terms of disturbing, uncertain in exactly its implication even. We'll enjoy it. We'll try and pay attention to it as we go. At 3a, I've mentioned Song of the Open Road a number of times, Pent Up Aching Rivers as well. I think, though, that really what Whitman is doing, and he wants us to go there, is the Iliad and the Odyssey, especially all those epic similes that we talked about. Finally, at 3b, simple questions for you. Are you satisfied with the simple things? I mean, isn't it enough for you in your life to simply see, dance, laugh, and sing? And to some degree, is that really the game that we try and play in 303? When we say we are the stories that we tell and retell, the stories we decide to accept, the stories we decide to reject, is that really all that matters in your life? Or is there a whole lot more to it than that? How about this one? Is it true that every end is actually a beginning? And every beginning is actually an end, a question that, of course, we asked when we did T.S. Eliot's Bert Norton, right? I'm sorry, East Coker. Well, we ask it with Bert Norton as well. So actually, you ask it with every one of the 4 poems of 4 quartets, don't you? That idea that everything is cyclical, and if that's true, then what about things like death, which we normally like to think of as a final end, and yet is death a final end? We'll come to that here when we meet passage 6 in a little bit, and Whitman in many ways is already setting us up for it. Well, let's go on now to the companion reading of passage 4. From talkers, we go to trippers, and that's always fun when you talk about the word trippers. I hope that you're enjoying our talks with Walt. Thank you.